One moment. Pound key a couple times. Okay. We are on.
Okay. This meeting of the Milwaukee Board of School Directors will please come to order. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Director Carr? Director Garcia?
Present.
Director Gokul Gandhi?
Present.
Director Jackson is asked to be excused. Director Leonard?
Present.
Director O'Halloran?
Here.
Director Seamson?
Present.
Director Zomber?
Present.
President Herndon?
Present. The chair will now ask the secretary to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. The chair invites any members of the audience who wish to participate to do so, and asks that those who do not wish to participate please remain silent during the pledge. Members?
Madam Chair, before the pledge, we do not have anyone in the audience, just for our listening audience. No one is here present, even though central office is open for tonight's meeting. And we have 7 board members present for the meeting. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We acknowledge that Milwaukee lies on traditional Menominee, Potawatomi, and Ho-Chunk homeland along the southwest shores of Lake Michigan, part of North America's largest system of freshwater lakes. On this site, the Milwaukee, Menominee, and Kinnickinnick rivers meet, and the people of Wisconsin's Menominee, Ojibwa, Ho-Chunk, Oneida, and Mohican sovereign nations remain present to this day. Pursuant to Board Rule 1.30, this meeting is being conducted virtually. Board members may be participating remotely or in person from the Central Services Building. In order to allow as much public access and participation as possible, this meeting is also being broadcast on WYMS Radio 88.9 FM and via live stream on the MPS website and on the MPS YouTube stream, the links to which may be found on the MPS website on the broadcast page. Before we begin tonight's meeting, we have a short announcement regarding interpretation services for the Spanish-speaking members of our audience.
Buenas tardes y bienvenidos a la Junta Escolar de las Escuelas Públicas de Milwaukee. Si desea escuchar esta reunión en español, por favor llame al 312-626-6799. Nuevamente, 312-626-6799. E introduzca el número de reunión 608-130-5362. Nuevamente, el número de reunión es 608-130-5362. Gracias.
Thank you. Before we proceed with our agenda items, the chair would ask for a moment of silence to commemorate the passing of the following members of the MPS community. Cameron Carney, a student from Carmen Northwest. Lisa Downs, a food service assistant from Wedgwood Park School. Barbara Hill, a retired paraprofessional from Morris Middle School. Troy Moore, a building service helper from Washington High School of Information Technology. Catherine Pozanowski, a teacher from Starnes. Thank you. Each month, the Milwaukee Board of School Directors accept the public's input both at the committee meetings and through correspondence submitted to the Office of Board Governance. As this is the regular monthly meeting of the board, however, in accordance with board rules, the board will not be taking any public testimony on any items during tonight's meeting. Just as a reminder, Robert's Rules of Order dictate that all comments, questions, or requests should be directed to the chair, who will determine the most efficient way to address them. For our listening audience, if you wish to access this evening's agenda items and attachments online, you may do so by visiting the meetings, agendas, and minutes page on the MPS website and choosing online agendas. Now, let's begin. Madam Secretary, what is our first item of business?
The first item of business is action on the minutes of the August and September special and regular meetings of the Milwaukee Board of School Directors. The August minutes had been held one cycle to allow for suggested edits to be submitted by Director Zambor.
Thank you. Do members of the board have additional corrections for the minutes? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, I see none.
And what is the pleasure of the board with respect to the minutes as presented with the corrections?
I move we accept the minutes.
If there are no corrections, the minutes are approved as presented. Madam Secretary, are there...
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Director Gokul Gandhi has moved approval of the minutes with the correction, and at this point, we would need a second on that motion.
A second.
So noted. Madam Chair, would you like me to call the roll?
Yes.
On Director Gokul Gandhi's motion, seconded by Director Leonard, to accept the minutes from the August regular and special and September regular and special meetings of the Milwaukee Board of School Directors as presented in the attachments to this item. On the motion as read, Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran. Director O'Halloran. I can't hear you, but I do see, and we have witnesses that you are saying aye. Okay, got it. Director Simpson?
Aye.
Director Zambor?
Aye.
President Herndon?
Aye.
That's 7 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, are there any reports or communications from the superintendent?
Yes, Madam President, we do have one communication from the superintendent, and that is the monthly report with possible action of the superintendent of schools. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Will the superintendent please present the report?
Yes, good evening, President Herndon and members of the board. Keith Bosley, Superintendent of Schools. This month's report outlines some of the district highlights and upcoming events. On September 21st, students from Milwaukee High School of the Arts performed at the state capitol during the annual State of Education address. Their performance was nothing short of inspiring, leaving a deep sense of pride within the Milwaukee Public Schools community. On the 4th of October, a multitude of MPS high school students embarked on an enriching journey to Milwaukee Tools for the MPS Skills, Trade, and Technical Career Fair. At this event, more than 4 employees actively engaged with our students, offering invaluable insight and perspectives for future employment, promising careers, and converting basic into internships. October 9th marked our collective participation in commemorating the Indigenous People Day as we stood in unity with the city of Milwaukee, the state of Wisconsin, and fellow citizens nationwide to recognize the rich heritage and culture of Indigenous communities. I am delighted to convey that we have successfully completed the development of 4 additional green schoolyards. Among those notable additions are Mitchell Integrated Art School, Raleigh Dual Language School, Ginsland School, and Milwaukee German Immersion Schools. These transformative outdoor spaces symbolize our commitment to fostering environmental awareness and rigorous learning experiences. For those individuals that just are so passionate about our winter sports, like I am pleased to announce the registration for winter sport is now officially open. Students and their families have the privilege to register through November 27th, securing their participation in our wonderful winter sports. This concludes my summary around my report. My full report is attached, and if you have any questions at this time, I am prepared to answer those questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Do the board members wish to make any comments on the superintendent's report?
You do have Director Leonard in the queue.
Director Leonard, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Just a shout out. I attended the Milwaukee Tool event. Over 850 of our students were there. And I had a chance to talk to quite a few of the vendors, and I just wanted to, the difference just from 2 years back, the programs that we're working with apprenticeships and the different community people that were there has gained a lot of traction, significant amount of traction. Just a great shout out. Keep up the great work. I'm excited on the direction we're going with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more remarks from committee members? If not, Madam Secretary, are there any reports or communications from the board clerk, chief officer, or officer of board governance?
Yes, Madam Chair. We do have one report, and that is the monthly report with possible action on the legislative activities affecting Milwaukee Public Schools. And this is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required. And we do have Mr. Thiel on the platform to give the report.
Okay, at this point, we'll have the report from Mr. Thiel.
Thank you, President Herndon, members of the board. Chris Thiel, Office of Governmental Relations. Just bringing the board up to speed with a couple of pieces of information that came out over the last month and that are included in the attachments. We've talked since the budget and before the budget about the fact that the state of Wisconsin has a significant balance and surplus in its coffers. And the first item clarifies that when you combine both what's kind of called the rainy day fund with the general balance, right now the state of Wisconsin is sitting on $8.8 billion with a B dollars after this most recent state budget. We anticipate another fiscal update from the Legislative Fiscal Bureau in November. And there was a strong economic report nationally today. So it will be interesting to keep tracking how much money the state actually continues to have in its coffers moving forward. Associated with that, we asked for an update to the Blue Ribbon Commission report on K-12 education that the board, I think, is familiar with, and that was a report that was produced after a task force was put together by Speaker Robin Voss. And in that in the recommendations of that report, a number of areas were highlighted that also have been highlighted by the state Supreme Court in years past, including funding that should go to students with disabilities, English language learners, and students challenged by poverty. And as you can see in that fiscal update for the Blue Ribbon Commission report, the state will need to put about $416 million in place to reach a 60% reimbursement rate for special education, which is something that we all have been very focused on. But it also demonstrates that in order to meet the recommendation of a weighted formula for English learners and students challenged by poverty, the state would need to put 120 million in place to support English learners and 780 million annually to assist students challenged by poverty. We're one of the few states that does not have a very clear policy and funding for students challenged by poverty. And so you put those three items alone together in terms of the recommendations that that commission put forward, and the state would need to move an additional 1.3 billion annually into place. In years past, people have suggested that the state doesn't have the money despite the constitutional obligation to support students. And clearly, when the state is sitting on $8.8 billion, we are in a moment where perhaps action could be considered to move the state toward its own recommendations. So those pieces of information are there for use. The other update, or just kind of the annual reminder, is that in our state funding system, we have a couple of interesting policies. And I think I've brought up in the past the school levy tax credit, which the state of Wisconsin, in its legally and in statute, says is funding for schools, or it is included as part of funding for schools, but in reality is a tax credit, as it is called, the school levy tax credit. And what you have in your in the attached file there is what came to the city last year for the tax credit, a little over $50 million. And that is applied after school boards submit their levies, and it doesn't show up kind of on the front line in terms of what the levy is for school districts. But when you in December get your property tax bill, you will there will be a note of the reduction that is attributable to the school levy tax credit. In this last year's budget, the state substantially increased the amount of money in that credit by roughly 27%. And while, you know, some calculations still need to be made, we don't know for a fact that we'll see ourselves a 27% adjustment for Milwaukee, but we're going to see something significant. And I would imagine it would, when the report comes out at the end of November, see our tax credit change maybe $10 to $13 million possibly. So that issue gets raised. It's a little hidden because it's this memo that's produced by the state to the city. It comes out at the end of November. But since we've discussed it in the past, just wanted to make sure that that document was available to hopefully help with understanding. That's my summary. Happy to answer questions if you have them.
Sir, ask questions?
More of a comment. Just,
Go ahead, Director Leonard.
sorry. I find this very awkward. We haven't done this in a while. But anyway,
Correct.
just more of a comment. With the amount of money that we have, nearly $9 billion, there shouldn't be a single public school district in the state, and this is just for public record. There's just no reason for any school district in the public school district in the state to have a deficit. We could easily cover that, and Chris, I don't know what that number would be, but my guess is that just to cover any deficits would probably be less than $2 billion. I'm not sure. I'm guessing, but I find it sort of amazing that we're hanging on to that money. I'd be curious where that's all going to go one day. But anyway, any comments? Greatly appreciated, and thanks for the great report.
President Herndon, Director Leonard. Yeah, I mean, some of these documents are provided because of the complexity that's all involved in the school funding system. And obviously, you know, when people hear different strands of things, understandably, there could be some confusion. But as even outside of the documents and the discussion about related to students challenged by poverty, students with disabilities, English learners, as we have discussed, the state of Wisconsin has not had per pupil funding that's kept pace with inflation for 16 years at this point. So deficits and districts going to referenda, and some of those things that we'll anticipate seeing again, that is because the revenue limits have not kept pace with inflation, and districts are still, forced to make cuts or go to referendum, despite having this close to $9 billion, as you say. So it's a kind of a constant effort to communicate this factual information, but I think hopefully it's helpful for the discussions going forward to make sure that we're funding students.
Thank you very much. Are there any more comments from members of the board? If not, seeing none, Madam Secretary, moving ahead, there are reports of communications from the Office of Accountability and Efficiency.
Yes, Madam Chair, we do have one report, and that is the monthly report with possible action on activities within the Office of Accountability and Efficiency. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Thank you. Would the Office of Accountability and Efficiency please present this report?
Thank you, Chair Herndon. Matt Chasen, Office of Accountability and Efficiency. In the interest of expediency, that report is before you. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Do board members have questions or wish to make comments on this? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Chasen. Madam Secretary, what is the next item of business?
The next item is the reports of the independent hearing officers of the Milwaukee Board of School Directors, the expulsion reports.
Okay, the chair will entertain a motion to accept, modify, or reject the reports of the independent hearing officers of the dates and times listed in our agenda. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Madam Chair, we do need a motion.
Could I have a motion to accept the report as read?
Director O'Halloran and Director Seamson are in the queue.
Okay, Director O'Halloran.
I move approval of the reports as attached.
Director Seamson?
I second.
Thank you. Will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director O'Halloran's motion, seconded by Director Seamson, to accept the reports of the independent hearing officers. On the motion as read, Director Garcia?
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi?
Aye.
Director Leonard?
Aye.
Director O'Halloran?
Aye.
Director Seamson?
Aye.
Director Zambor?
Abstain.
President Herndon?
Aye.
That's 6 ayes, 1 abstention. The motion passes.
Okay. We will now have the reports of the standing committees. Since public hearings was given at the committee meetings, the board, as is customary, will not be giving public hearing on these reports this evening. Madam Secretary, what is the first report?
The first report is that of the Committee on Accountability, Finance, and Personnel. Item number 2, action on recommended administrative appointments, promotions, reassignments, and reclassifications, the salary increases and decreases, and the limited term employment contracts exceeding 60 days has been set aside as it was forwarded to the board from the committee without recommendation.
Thank you. Do any board members wish any other items to be set aside? Madam Secretary, what is the next report?
Madam Chair, I do believe Director Zomber's hand is in the queue.
Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't see it. Director Zomber.
Do you need me to make a motion to set it aside or just say, oh, I'm sorry. Never mind. Keep going. I got ahead of myself.
Okay, Thank you. Madam Secretary, what is the next report?
The next report is that of the Committee on Parent and Community Engagement. No items of this report have been set aside for separate consideration.
Do any board members wish to, any items to be set aside out of this report? I see no hands. Madam Secretary, what is the next report?
The next report is that of the Committee on Student Achievement and School Innovation. No items of this report have been set aside for separate consideration.
Do any board members wish any items to be set aside out of this report? I see no hands. So, Madam Secretary,
At this time, we would entertain a motion to accept the balance of the reports, and that is outside of the item that's been set aside.
correct. So, Madam Secretary, I don't see a hand up.
Director Zomber has her is in the queue, and then
My
Director
screen is little, I
Simpson.
can't see.
Right. I know you're
Aye.
sharing, so I'm Director Zomber is first in the queue, and then we have Director Simpson.
I move
Okay,
to
go
accept.
ahead.
I move to accept the remainder of the reports.
Thank you. Is there a second?
And I will second that.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Zomber's motion, seconded by Director Simpson to accept the balance of the reports. And that on that motion is read, Director Garcia,
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi,
Aye.
Director Leonard,
Aye.
Director O'Halloran,
Aye.
Director Simpson,
Aye.
Director Zombor,
Aye.
President Herndon.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Madam Chair, we are now back to the item that was set aside, and that is item number 2 from the Committee on Accountability, Finance, and Personnel. Item 2 is recommended administrative appointments, promotions, reassignments, and reclassifications, salary increases and decreases, and limited term employment contracts exceeding 60 days. This item, the administration recommended approval of the promotions, appointments, leaves, and contracts as listed to be effective upon board approval. Your committee has forwarded this item to you without recommendation.
Does the administration wish to make comment on this item?
Yes. I want to turn it over to Adrian Matalini, Chief Human Resources Officer. Adrian?
Thank you. President Herndon, members of the board, Adrian Matalini, Chief Human Resources Officer. Since the appointments were brought forward to the board without recommendation, we would like to take the opportunity to add an additional appointment for your consideration. Mr. Ray Perrine for Principal of Townsend.
What is the pleasure of the board with respect to this item?
You have Director Garcia and then Director Zomber in the queue.
Go ahead, Director Garcia.
I move approval as with the additional recommendations by administration.
So noted.
Director Zomber?
I have a different motion.
Okay, so at this point, we have a motion on the floor, so we would need a second for continued discussion.
May I have a second, please, for continued discussion on this item?
I'll second.
Second by Director O'Halloran.
Sure.
So noted.
Now, Madam Secretary, back to Director Zombers.
Yes.
Go ahead, Director Zomber.
May I make a a different motion, or do we have to dispense of the first motion to discuss a different motion?
It is possible to make a substitute motion.
Okay. I move that we approve the appointments with the exception of any positions that would be in the Office of Board Governance.
Is there a second?
Without a second, the motion fails, and we are back to the original motion by Director Garcia.
Then we should call the roll, Madam Secretary.
On Director Garcia's motion to approve the administrative appointments with the addition requested by the administration, seconded by Director O'Halloran. On the motion as read. Director Garcia?
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi?
Abstain.
Director Leonard?
Aye.
Director O'Halloran?
Aye.
Director Simpson?
Abstain.
Director Zambor?
No.
President Herndon?
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, 2 abstentions, 1 no. The motion passes.
Okay, Madam Secretary, are there any other items of regular business?
Yes, Madam Chair, we do have 2 items of regular business. The first is a report of the board's delegate. The first report is that of the board's delegate to the Milwaukee Education Partnership.
Would the delegate like to make any remarks?
I would. I actually had a chance to talk to Mr. Randall. Today just to get some clarification on some questions that I had. I would like to just extend the fact that he said if there's any concerns at all about the report, any concerns about any misunderstandings with regards to the report, he has opened himself up to speak to any of the board directors directly. So he wanted me to extend that out to everybody. I know that there's at least, there's going to be some questions on one of the items, and I can speak to it, but I think I should wait till after the question is asked. Otherwise, it doesn't work out in context.
Okay, thank you for that. Did you say he was available?
No, he is not available. I'm going to speak in his stead because I already asked him some of the questions. But I would just ask, I'm going to have to just ask the other board directors that have a question regarding what I had already asked Mr. Randall. Okay.
Okay, I see Director Zomber's hand is up.
Thank you, Chair
Zomber.
Herndon. So first of all, I just want to thank Director Leonard for the report. It's been a while since we've had an update on MEP. And it was news to me that MEP co-sponsored the HBCU events. I don't recall seeing their names on the flyers advertising those events. And while we have this in front of us, I just want to urge my colleagues to take a close look at the report so that we can, ask ourselves if this partnership is duplicating or possibly taking credit for work done by the Black and Latino Male Achievement Office or Office of College and Career Readiness, or work we're doing through the M-Cubed partnership with UWM or MATC. I know when we first started our partnership with the MEP, the BLMA and M-Cube didn't exist. And my understanding is that MATC has pulled out of the MEP partnership, and I'm wondering if the administration or Director Leonard know if UWM has pulled out as well. It's hard to get an accurate understanding of who all of the participants are because the website's extremely out of date and the phone number listed on the website isn't working. And then I have some more questions, but I'll wait for an update about UWM.
And in that we don't have the delegate to speak here, if administration would like to respond, go ahead.
President Herndon, members of the board, to my understanding, the UWM has pulled out of the partnership.
Okay, thank you. And then I guess would the administration or Director Leonard be able to, Mr. Randall, be able to get the board a list of names of all of the active executive partners, including the delegate from the UW-Madison School of Education that was, I believe in the report, newly welcomed as a new MEP member or partner?
I could most definitely ask him. He was very willing to work with us all together. The only thing, and I think Dr. Poser, you may know this better than I, but the one thing that Mr. Randall did tell me was that with regards to UWM, he spoke specifically to HBCU students that were working on pursuing a doctorate. So he went into a very detailed explanation of that. That's the only information I got regarding UWM.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry. Also, regarding something to do with Morgan State and UW-Madison for a program that's working in that direction, but that was not UWM though.
Okay, well, this appears that if there's something, Director Zomber, go ahead.
Just a couple more questions as a follow-up on this. I'm curious how much other education institutions pay to participate in the MEP. I know our membership right now is around $75,000 a year. That doesn't include the money that we've contracted with them for the Milwaukee Connects internship program. This report identifies that there's one person for Milwaukee Connects for spring of 2024. So I'm wondering if that is for the October 2022 contract, and how many total participants have there been since that contract started in 22 for Milwaukee Connects through MEP. I just have some concerns because when I look at the latest 990s, which like their website is a little bit out of date, it seems to me like the executive director's salary matches the amount of the annual MEP MPS contract, and so I appreciate the work that's been done on the events listed in the report, but I'm just unclear about what we're getting for that contract, who's actually responsible for the work, and is it duplicating some of the services that we're already doing? And now that's the last question.
Thank you very much, Director Zomber. Are you requesting that the items that you're outlining, you'd like to be responded to by administration?
Well, I did have a question about the Milwaukee Connects program. There was one person was identified to go through the program. I know in previous contracts that Milwaukee Connects, we were, the contract was for $6,470 per intern, not to exceed $64,170. That was for the 22-23 school year. So I'm just wondering, is the spring 2024 person identified for the program? Is that the previous contract?
Okay. Madam Secretary, under the circumstances, I don't think we're able to have administration respond to that tonight. So would you suggest that we perhaps present a resolution, or what would your suggestion be on getting a response to the details of this item?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Leonard, as the delegate to the MEP, in his conversation offered that the leader of MEP could come and speak with the board, right? So come and give a presentation, and that way it gives the board opportunity to ask questions in public.
That's exactly what he's offering. So.
Okay, so we'll make arrangements to have that put on. Okay. All right, Madam Secretary. We'll
So
make
noted.
sure that it gets put on the agenda for next month, where it is convenient for Mr. Gerard Randall to appear.
So
to
noted.
speak. Okay?
Thank you. Mhm.
Thanks. So with that, what is the next report?
The next report is that of the board's delegate to the library board.
Would the delegate like to make any remarks?
No, that report is before you. And if you have any questions, please reach out.
Okay. Do any other delegates have a report this evening? Madam Secretary, what is the next item of regular business? Seeing none.
Madam Chair, the next item of regular business is the monthly report of the president of the Milwaukee Board of School Directors.
And I see the smile. I don't have it this evening. I will get it returned in next week. Thank you.
Thank you. We understand you are in travel. No problem. Madam Chair, we have no new business. We have no communications and no resolutions. And
Right. So it appears that we're done.
Madam Chair, that was the last item on tonight's agenda.
Okay, with no more items on tonight's agenda, this meeting is adjourned.
And before we log off, can we just thank our newly hired and promoted employees for bringing their talents to serve the students, staff, and community of Milwaukee. Go forth and do great things.
Thank you very much. Welcome. And good night, all.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Recording stopped.